Thank you for listening to the Kyle and Tim podcast, where we have authentic conversations that help cultivate a better understanding of ourselves, our guests, and the world we live in. This podcast is about our guests, getting to know them, their backgrounds, experiences, thoughts, and ideas. We really appreciate you listening. Before we introduce our next guest, we'd like to introduce a few of our sponsors that help make this podcast possible.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Mountain Mule Transportation, located here in Bozeman, Montana. Mountain Mule is a private SUV and truck service, offering chauffeur services in all of southwest Montana. Whether it's your next skiing, hunting, or fishing trip, early morning or late night trips to and from Bozeman Airport, as well as weddings and private parties. No matter the occasion, Mountain Mule will get you there safely and on time. To learn more, visit mountain-mule.com and book today.
Hi, it's Annette Presley. Welcome to the Kyle and Tim podcast. I'm really grateful to be here today. I know you guys don't know who I am. I'm a New Zealand entrepreneur, and I've been in business for many, many years, like 40 years or something. I started up 2 companies that I grew to about 350 million, joined the New Zealand Rich List some time back, got an award from the Queen for service, Order of New Zealand Merit for service to business and women. I'm in the Hall of Fame. I have all kinds of other awards, but my greatest achievement is my 2 beautiful children, and I'm really honored that Tim asked me to be here today.
Thank you so much, Annette. Enjoy, folks. Okay, Annette Presley, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
Yeah. So let's start. Where are you from?
I'm from New Zealand, Auckland, New Zealand.
Okay, that's where you were born?
Yeah, across the other side of the world.
Do you have siblings?
I have one brother, a younger brother, Warren.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was life like in Auckland, New Zealand growing up?
You mean when we were little?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we grew up in South Auckland, so it was, and it is kind of one of our lower socioeconomic areas, and I think I had a pretty tough upbringing in some ways, but not the toughest, you know. We lived in a kind of a middle class area, lower class area, and we went to the local schools. My father was a little bit violent, so my brother and I would spend quite a bit of time running away from him.
Oh, really?
And sometimes that was funny. His pants would fall down and the belt had come off, and that was kind of part of our upbringing. And I'd run away to the golf course. So, but there was also some love in there too. And but yeah, it was a challenging childhood, to be honest.
What did your parents do?
My father was a salesman for a hardware company, and my mum was a stay-at-home mum.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
And that that was pretty common then. Like most moms were stay-at-home moms then.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because in the 60s, when I don't want to tell you my age, but when I was born, women really didn't go to work. Sometimes maybe teacher or a nurse, but they weren't in business and they didn't really have careers.
Yeah, I know that's how it was in the U.S. I didn't know if there's any different in New Zealand or other countries, or if that was pretty similar.
Yeah, we were actually the first country in the world to give women the vote.
Okay.
But the world dynamics of women and men were the same in New Zealand as everywhere else. So yeah, my mum was a stay-at-home mum. She got pregnant really early with me. She was only 19. So, and it was unexpected. So I think that was not necessarily her life plan.
Yep. And then you said your brother's younger?
My brother's 4 years younger.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was school like in New Zealand?
Depended on the day, and I think like every country depends on, in the school, it depended on the teacher and whether the teacher liked you or not. And if they didn't like you, then it was a nightmare. And if they did like you, then it was great. And I had some incredible teachers, to be honest. And my parents saved up to send me, we weren't Catholic, but to a Catholic, very strict strict single-sex school, and I think that made the difference in my life because I really admired the nuns.
Okay.
And a couple of them took me under their wing. A couple of them were really, very strict and difficult, but that really took me out of a pretty dysfunctional world, because many of my friends were in gangs, several were addicted to drugs, got pregnant young, multi-generational, we call it benefit families, supported by the government.
Yep.
So that was the environment I grew up in. And my father, he worked quite hard. But yeah, so I think that education took me out of where I was to see possibilities and hope. And the school that I would have gone to succeed academically was not the way to go. So most of my friends that I went to primary, we call it, and secondary school, or you call it middle school, I think, and they did end up in bad situations. So I think that was my saving grace. I lived with a gang actually for 18 months. Yeah.
So it's just kind of your environment that you're around what helped shape you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think if I'd gone to Papatoe High School, where all my best friends went at that point in my life, I think I would be a different person today. I think education and the nuns and the expectation that I would achieve, and I did, made the difference because they expected me to achieve. And whereas at the other school, and I'm not putting down the public education system, but in this particular case, it was expected that you were going to fail, and if you succeeded, you were frowned upon. So I think that made a huge difference.
Do you think those schools are any better now than they were then?
Well, interesting enough, I've actually got a little bit involved with them.
Okay.
And I can't truly answer that yet because I've just started that journey. But I don't know, to be honest. They've asked me to help them put in place counsellors and things, and we never had anything like that.
Yeah.
So on the surface of it, yes.
Was it? I mean, what about it? Was it the nuns specifically, or just the whole structure of the school and the way they lived their lives specifically?
Tim, I think it was. I've never been asked that question before. They had faith, belief. They had goals. They were helping others, which to me is a huge element to success in life. And they had discipline and commitment. And I think that those factors are keys to success. And none of those factors were there. They might have been in some of the teachers, and I certainly don't want to disregard the public system because I had some great teachers in middle school, but they had a sense of discipline and commitment and goals and wanting to serve others that really, I think, made a huge difference to all the girls that were in the school. And a lot of us succeeded. One of my girlfriends from that school is a NASA scientist now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I think it does make a difference, the education that we have.
Yeah, I know Catholicism can get a bad rap because of a lot of different issues, but there's a great structure to it, and that structure of how to live your life. There is really good morals and values within Catholicism. It's just there's plenty of things we've all heard about that aren't great about it, but I do totally agree to the structure.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, I had my best friend at school got pregnant, and she said it was Immaculate Conception, and she truly believed that. So, there's 100% a brainwashing aspect, and I don't mean to be negative about organised religion. However, there's also the positivity behind it as well that I think helped set me on my path. Interestingly enough, I wasn't a Catholic. It's quite funny. And so I go to Christian Living and I disagree with everything they said. So, and sorry for your religious Catholic listeners, but, I agreed with contraception before marriage, point in case my girlfriend. I agreed, my mother was an advocate for abortion. And I agreed with all of that. So I would stand up the Christian living classes. This is quite funny. I didn't know this at the time. And I disagree with everything the nuns said. I was quite disagreeable from a young age, or opinionated, I suppose you could call it. And I went back. They asked me to come back and speak many years later. And Sister Mary, who was really a great advocate of mine, God knows why, I went up to her and I said, I don't understand. Why did I always get A's for Christian living? Because I got straight A's. But I always disagreed. Do you know what she said to me? This is one of the reasons that I think the nuns really, truly made a difference in my life, particularly her. I feel a bit emotional. Was she said to me, we taught the girls what to believe. And a lot of the time, they'd listen or they wouldn't listen, because they were teaching them what they had to believe. But you made them really think. And then they had to stand up for their beliefs. So all of a sudden what we were teaching made sense to them and they had to defend their position. That's why you got straight A's, which I thought was really hilarious and progressive for nuns.
No, that's very cool. Yeah, that they're that forward thinking. You think they just want to lock you somewhere off and not let you talk to anyone and deal with anyone.
Yeah. But isn't that interesting? And actually, it's all about disruption when you think about it. I was disrupting beliefs through having an opposing view, which when you look at the world and life and, that's what makes people really, truly think about their beliefs.
Now I know where Brandon gets it from.
I have to send this to him. He's gorgeous.
I was going to ask you, though, where do you think you got that from?
I don't, my grandmother was my angel in my life. She really was my greatest supporter, and I call her my angel. Where did I get it from? God, I think my mother was always, she was always pushing and wanting to be more and wanting me to be more and, forcing me to study when I wanted to go and play and get good grades and, and I fortunately always did, but only because I studied really hard, not because I was naturally brilliant. So I think probably from her, and my father was a charismatic salesman who always, we would have very, very, very robust conversations at the dinner table every night. So I think from the family, I'd say, whether that was positive or negative, it's made me who I am. So it's positive and I thank them for it.
Yeah, it sounds like positive. That's just hard when you're a young teenager kid to stand up against anything. Most kids are just so malleable. They just kind of get brainwashed and agree with most of what they hear.
No. So, yeah, therefore that's my mother and my father.
Yeah.
Every dinner was a full-on debate, and usually ended up with one of us running away, but everything was debated and I think he taught me, I was either going to become what you said, a docile little lamb, or I was going to stand up and say, no, I disagree. I really disagree with what you're saying. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, that's probably where I got it from. It must be.
Yeah, what a valuable skill. Critical thinking.
Yeah, critical thinking. All thanks to having a really challenging, dysfunctional family upbringing. But, Tony Robbins, who I have a lot of time for, as you know,
yep.
He teaches, if you're going to blame somebody for the bad stuff, blame them for the good stuff too.
Yeah.
And I've always done that, but he reinforced it in me. Don't just blame, your parents for what they did wrong. Blame them for who you are today and the good stuff that you have today, because that's kind of where it came from, right?
Yeah. He says life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you.
For you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. But yeah, that's usually the most interesting, accomplished, and just diverse people are the people that went through all kinds of crazy hardships to get there.
Yeah. Well, one of the keys to, success in life, whether it's, I'm sure you agree, whether it's relationships, whether it's business, is resilience. Would you agree?
Yeah.
And so there's been a book written, the children who have the toughest time when they're younger, they get taught resilience early. So when they become, as you say, teenagers and then young adults and hardships hit them, they already know how to deal with it. Whereas if you've had a pretty cruisy, easy childhood, they've written books on this, when hardship comes, you crumble. So it's an interesting lesson. And there was a book written on the most successful men, of course, because primarily the men ruled our world still, but not for long, I hope. And that the most successful men in the world, I think Bill Gates, I think Mark Zuckerberg, I can't remember, I think Elon Musk, and I might get the names wrong, but pretty sure two of those three, at least, if not all of them, their dads left when they failed in the education system. So they got taught, that, hey, failure is normal. Failure is exactly what I'm going to have. I need to make the rules, and it's going to be tough. Whereas if you think everything's going to be easy, and then when things get tough, you run away, in my experience, the people that I've had around me.
No, that makes sense. I just heard this recently that children that have a pet in their home will be more resilient because the pet will die at some point and they get used to loss.
Aww.
And if that's something they never experience and they're just kind of hidden from, it's a sad way to get tougher, but it's you start to understand the mortality of life a little bit better and just how quick it can go if you have a pet and lose a pet.
Yeah, that's what I did to Brandon, by the way.
Oh, really? Did they have pets when you guys were growing up?
Yeah, I remember one of the worst days. Brandon, just, a cat that we'd had forever, and he was just crying. I had to bring him home from school. Yeah, but you're right. It builds toughness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not fun. Like, it's not like you want to be brutal on your kids, but they gotta, I don't know. How do you do you have any idea how you balance that? How you give them a tough upbringing and show them you love them?
Oh, as a mother, all you want to do is protect them and love them, and you don't want them to see anything bad either,
Yeah.
We all know that. So I don't know. I'm sure there are some parents that put tough things in their way, and sometimes, you want them to go through the journey of the toughness, but not necessarily really tough things, I got divorced, and I think that was, their parents got divorced, and I think that was tough on both of them, and I think that is part of their journey. But I didn't plan that. I didn't say, hey, I'm going to get divorced because that'll teach them toughness, or the cat's going to die. You don't do that.
Yeah.
Because you're a parent, you just want to protect your children more than anything. You'll die for them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But life comes along.
Yeah, you don't really have to plan it. It'll just happen anyway.
Well, I don't know. And then there's things along the way, obviously, where, they want to give up hobbies. And so you try and, I don't know that I always succeed. You try and get them to stick at things and teach them resilience through that. There's all those little things behind the big things. I think if you have your own values and your own beliefs, and you want to instill them in your children, it happens by default. You don't want to teach your kids to give up. You don't want to teach,
that makes sense.
So you're teaching them resilience by default, but maybe not the toughness that just comes through the journey of life.
Yeah, that makes sense. What else was high school growing up? Did they do any sports or anything there or no?
Oh my gosh. Overachieving parents, I put them in everything.
But did you have sports in the schools you were in or no?
Yeah, but sports wasn't my thing. I was a dancer, so I did ballet and tap and jazz.
That your primary thing you focused on when you were younger, growing up?
No, I focused a lot on boys.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, and schoolwork, because my mother kind of made me, but. I also did feel an entrepreneurial. I didn't know it was entrepreneurial when I was really young. So I started, selling golf balls and selling flower arrangements. And when I was really young,
okay,
I think I was 8. And I love people. So to me, and I've always taught people this in my journey. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to do it today. To me, it's about finding your passion. And if you find your passion and you follow your passion, then, success, fun, and whatever your other goals are, maybe money's one of them, maybe it's not, it doesn't have to be, then they'll follow you. But if you don't follow your passion, then when the going gets tough, you give up. But if you're passionate about something, as you know, you keep going with it. You are less prone to give up. And you're more prone to actually want to be the best at it because you love it.
Yeah.
So, I always felt passionate about people, but I didn't really realize that, and about helping people, whether it was through golf balls or flower arrangements. Yeah.
And so you still had some sort of entrepreneurial or business sense at a young age?
I mean, I wouldn't have said that when I was 8, but looking back, yes, I suppose so. And then, I actually started up my own company when I was, I don't know, I can't remember, like 19 or 20. And it was a training company. Now looking back, modeled on what Tony Robbins does, but I don't know if he existed then. And we trained girls, how to start up their own businesses, how to manage a business, how to everything, how to dress, because in those days, and that was a learning journey for me, because we went from having 200 women committed to 350. So we increased it because we got excited about the number of people. We ended up losing money. And funnily enough, the media called me a feminist, which in those days was really negative thing. I was this ball-busting woman, and all I was trying to do was help women. I got that frame somewhere. I think it's very funny now. But
the article?
The article, yeah. Because a feminist was a very bad word back in those days, Tim.
I was going to ask you if it must have been you must have had a lot of pushback if you were trying to encourage women to work and start businesses.
Yeah, well, we did it. But the women wanted to learn. They wanted to, become independent. And so, it was an interesting journey. And that was my first kind of run-in with the media, where I went, this is a tool, but you have to be wise about how you use it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting now. I don't know if you follow it lately, but now they say twice as many women graduate university than men.
I have heard that. Is it true?
Totally, from what they say. I don't know.
I haven't researched it, but if that's the case, wow, that's total turnaround.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, now they're like, oh, what's happening to the men? They're all falling off. They're not doing anything.
Yeah, I have had that proposed to me in terms of the charity that I started up that has helped girls and not boys. And I've had people asking me, in business and life and the media, but why aren't you helping boys? And that was their reasoning behind it. But at the point that we started it, that wasn't the case. And, and it's about focus to succeed in business. But anyway, now we have actually widened it. So
you got into business is that what you did right out of high school? As you started in business? Did you go to any further school after high school?
No, I actually did a computer science degree.
Okay.
And funnily enough, you motivated me today to watch the speech I gave to, it's called Auckland University of Technology. I failed, and I gave a whole speech on it, which I just watched the first time in 6 or 7 years. And I failed because I studied really hard how to party in lots of nightclubs rather than the curriculum. They made me alumni, which thank you very much. It's really special. And I go back and I used to go and give speeches and graduation speeches, and really honoured considering I did fail. And the dean was a lady, and she said, if you just stay 6 more months, you've got this, you've got it. It's just that you've been partying too much. But I want to go and work. Mm-hmm. So I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go. So I did. And I was lucky, but I worked really, really hard. And my grandma, I couldn't get a job, and my grandma bought me a suit and paid for my haircut, and she said, hey, go out there and tell all the computer companies why you're the best thing that ever happened to them. And then, I was really lucky. I ended up the best paid failure from Auckland University of Technology because I believed in myself, and because she believed in me.
Yeah.
And that's so important, to surround yourself with people that believe in you. They call them mentors now, but it could be anybody.
Yeah.
As long as they believe in you.
What's her name? What was her name?
Well, we called her Nana Moo. That's what my kids called her.
Shout out to Nana Moo.
Yeah.
That's cool. So she was a big inspiration in your life?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I'd do an interview, and I'd been in a magazine, I remember, and she'd run round one day around the hospital because I was on the cover and I brought it to the hospital, and she's in bed, and now we can't find her, and she's running around the hospital showing this magazine to everybody. really was incredibly humbling because she grew up with nothing. She had 13 siblings, and she was a big motivator to me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I think anyone that's accomplished anything always looks back at certain special people that were pivotal in their life. It sounds like you kind of answered the question I'm about to ask, because if I said what's something that happened in your life that's made you who you are today, would you say that was going to Catholic school?
I definitely think my grandmother, she's the reason I started up the charity. Her unconditional love and support of me. She would wander around. They had shops, and she'd wander around the shop and say, "Oh, this is my granddaughter. She's the best salesperson that was ever born." And that was always in my head, that sense of self-confidence. And, I think there's more than one point in your life that changes you from one road down to another road. But she was the key, I think. My parents that were tough on me, that built resilience. Yeah. Going to two pretty tough schools and being brought up in an incredibly tough environment. And then going to that school, and there's so many paths along the way, or I don't know, what do you call it, junctions.
Yeah.
That and choices. Every day we make hundreds of choices. You made a choice today. I made a choice today. Let's make this happen.
Yeah.
But we could have made a different choice, and that would have led us down a different path. So anyway, I don't know if I answered your question, but
No, you did. It's some big choices, but it's a lot of little choices in between.
Yeah. And, the bad stuff that happens, as one of my role models, Tony Robbins, says, when the bad stuff happens, it's actually, it's not what happens to you. That's 10%. It's 90% how you respond. And so, something bad happens. So how am I going to respond to that? It's not the event. It's how you respond to it. And that's a hard thing, because every day you don't feel great, right? But then, as we talked about this morning, turning expectations to gratitude, priming, getting yourself in a good state if you're in a bad state, doing affirmations. I've had the great fortune to be, pretty successful in my life. Don't compare to those other men that I'm talking of. I'm not a billionaire, but if you measure financial success and success in business, I'm pretty successful in my world. However, it's just every day there's a challenge for all of us. Doesn't matter who we are. And then what am I going to do? How am I going to respond? And I find that just as difficult. And I think, that maybe they've mastered it better than us. I'm not close enough to know about those guys. But every day, if I can just change my attitude, and if I have a negative thought, try and change it to positive. I don't always succeed, but that's my goal.
Yeah. Even to you doing this podcast, I'll say, and it's hard to measure anyone's success, but people that I've, in my mind, seem to be more successful, I guess, in business and just in life in general with relationships. It's funny, when I've asked them to do this podcast, they've just said yes and done it right away. And it's sort of, I've realized it in hindsight that this is the way these people are in business and in life. They do things, they say yes to things, and they make decisions, and they don't kind of weigh it and go back and forth. They just seem to snap their fingers and make decisions. And I've noticed that correlation just specific to this podcast, but I don't know if you notice that in business as well, is that you make decisions and do things that.
Very much.
Yeah.
Very much. Procrastination is one of the main steps to failure. And I'm not suggesting that every decision is a good decision, but I totally agree. Just, I just keep thinking about Jim Carrey and Yes Man, a crazy movie. Have you seen it?
And not in a while. It's been a while.
I must watch that movie 6 times, because sometimes if you just say yes, that's one of the things that I tried to that we taught the girls, as long as it meets your morals and values and it's taking you towards your goal in life, say yes. And even if you don't think, like even coming here, I haven't done a podcast or an interview for a while, but it's just say yes. What's the worst thing that can happen? That's the thing in my business life. We would always ask ourselves when we were going to make a difficult decision, like taking the monopoly telephone company to court, and we became the only company in Australasia that had ever done that. And we had to sit down and say, what's the worst thing that can happen? Well, our business could go broke. Okay, that would be really seriously bad and we would not be happy. However, we wouldn't be dead. So feel the fear and do it anyway. And that's how I've kind of lived my life. And not every day is a good day, but, do the day anyway.
I was going to say that takes a lot of bravery to say, well, we won't be dead. There's still a lot of anxiety and fear that comes along with that.
Oh my God, huge. We stayed up. I mean, they did everything they could to kill us, the media was intense. I had a room 3 times the size. Every day I was doing interviews and TV, and in those days radio and newspaper every day. It became my job. It was insane. We had this huge company that I was running that I had to, fortunately in hindsight, I hired a young guy who I love him, and he now runs a $6 billion company in New Zealand called 2 Degrees, Australasia actually. Yeah, I had lunch with him the other day, and he said, Annette, if you and Malcolm had kept the company, we'd be making $2.5 billion in profit a year now. And I'm like, I think that's the right number. I'm like, okay, Mark. His name's Mark Callender, and that's one of the keys to success. Delegation. Surround yourself with people that are cleverer than you, which you know about because you're doing that now.
Trying to. I don't have to look very hard to find people that are cleverer than me.
Okay. Well, we need to work on that. Your sense of self-esteem.
It was a joke. It's my sense of humor.
Oh, I got it.
So what is the company that you have, or what was like the primary company that you focused on when you got into business?
Well, each one was primary in its time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But in Australia, we started up a company called Call Australia, and that was a telecommunications reseller. It didn't exist. So deregulation of telecommunications was in Australia. We moved from New Zealand to Australia. That was a real, feel the fear and do it anyway. Our supplier backed out, our business partner backed out, and, my business partner, who's one of the cleverest men I've ever had the good fortune to work with and also marry, he had a telecommunications company in New Zealand. I had my own company in New Zealand, and we co-joined, moved to Australia, nearly went broke 3 times. Oh my gosh, everything that could possibly go wrong went wrong. But then, we grew it to 100 million and we sold it for a lot of money many years later. Then we moved back to we had kids, which is my greatest achievement in my life. Moved back to New Zealand, started up another company, moved in from telco into internet, and grew a $250 million company there and sold that. So it's a great business success story for us.
What do you think the biggest lessons were that business has taught you?
That if something, I use the analogy of skiing, which is my greatest sports passion, as you know. If you're looking down a cliff, which still happens to me today, if I'm looking down a double black diamond off-piste run and I don't want to go down that run, sometimes, and there's rocks, and I'm not focused on what can go wrong. I'm focused on 2 things: where I'm going, and I say one word: commit. And it doesn't matter how many, don't focus on the rocks, don't focus on the bumps, don't focus on the crud, don't focus on where I want to go, and commit and keep turning down that run until I get to the bottom. And then I'll get better, and then I'll improve, and I might fall over and it might hurt, but I'm going to get up and I'm going to do the run. And it's the same in business. That's my biggest lesson: to commit, to feel the fear and do it anyway, to put myself out of my comfort zone and to keep going no matter what.
That's an awesome analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that's just so easy to picture. And so it seems so simple, but it's obviously very complex.
Well, it's pretty tough because you fall over and might hurt, and then you look at the rocks and you don't want to.
Yeah.
And it's scary, even after years and years and years of skiing. It's still scary, and it's the same with business. And every day, discipline, commitment, and all those things that nobody wants to do. But if you don't do them, you're not going to succeed. You won't be the best. And if you're not the best, in my opinion, and you won't grow. You won't create something unusual. You won't add value. You won't provide more for less, and you won't succeed in the way that you possibly can if you do those things, in my opinion.
Do you have any advice for women in business? Because I can't speak to it at all. But what advice would you give for women in particular?
It's funny because never really thought about the question. Women in business. So I would say, just the same as I would say to a man, use your strengths. I've had the great privilege of working with some incredible women. And one of my girlfriends who was here recently and is a very successful psychiatrist, she said, one of the things I admire about you is you've got a lot of girlfriends. And I never really thought about that. I love women, I love men too, but women have their own separate strengths, you're right, to men. So, but to me, it's about discovering what your strengths are, knowing what your strengths are and playing to them. But also I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for some very supportive, successful, oh my gosh, kind, and yes, loving men in business who supported me. So I have met some women that think that men are the enemy, and that's certainly by no means not all of them, because the successful ones don't look at men that way. But I would say work to your strengths. Surround yourself with people that know who you are. Don't focus on your weaknesses and where you're the people that are trying to hold you back, because they're irrelevant. Focus on the ones that are supporting you, and men can be your greatest advocate as long as you're adding value and you're supporting the people around you and you're working with the men around you. And if you find, and unfortunately they do exist, and I've been fired more than once in my life by a man because I know that they might feel intimidated by me, and surprisingly, some men do. So what? That doesn't matter. Just find somebody, that's a man who's not, without being rude, strong in himself. And it's the same with women. Surround yourself with people that support you, that truly see you, and always learn, always progress, and find people that are going to be better than you, that are going to support you on your journey, that you can look up to. That's what I always did. Don't worry about the ones that don't. And don't focus on this silly thing, in my opinion, of a glass ceiling, because in my opinion, it never existed. If you are the best at what you do and you add value and you provide more for less, you bring the people up around you. Well, they're going to do the same to you, in my experience. That doesn't mean that the people aren't out there that are going to try and hold you back, but they're irrelevant. Just let them fall by the wayside. Focus on the people that are going to lift you up, and lift people up around you. That's my advice.
That's probably why you have so many women around you in relationships, because you're probably a big inspiration to them.
Well, I hope I am. I mean, I still have bad days. I might need a couple of cups of coffee and a lot of affirmations, and they lift me up. I ring them and I say, I'm having a bad day. And, interestingly enough, the more I've gone down this journey that I've been on over the last, I've been on it my whole life, but, over the last kind of 5 years in particular of growth and progress, the more the people around me, like you, lift me up. So, if I'm having a bad day, I've got friends that I ring and they say, have you done your affirmations? Have you done your priming? Have you done your gratitude? And that, it really helps me.
Yeah, that's huge. But I will say to your credit too, you're very honest and open too if you're having a bad day. But a lot of people will just try to hide that and put on a face. Probably the fact that you reach out to people, like, no one's going to lift you up if they know if they don't think you're down.
No, It's true. I think, the thing that I've learned is about changing your state. If you're in a downward trajectory, if you can do those three things, really help me at this point in my journey. And life's such a long, hopefully a long journey, but don't go down. All of us, including me, can have the propensity to spiral down, and then you're at the bottom of the well. And if you can catch yourself, that's what I'm trying to do. We talked about that in the car.
Mm-hmm.
If I can catch myself and I can change my state, and whatever that takes. And I have a list on my fridge at home, actually, and the kids look at it every morning, which hopefully has motivated them, although some days they go, why have you got those silly lists on the house? But, I think subliminally it might motivate them. But, it might be have a bath. It might be, do a walk, listen to a podcast like this, But having that in front of me, meditate. These are the things for me, but everybody's different. Talk to a friend so that I know, when I'm not in a good state and I might be spiraling down, like all of us can have the propensity to do sometimes, I can lift myself up, from a negative 10 to a, even a +2, keep going.
They probably say that, why do you have those lists now? And when they get older, they're going to look back and be like, you know what? Thank God that Annette, thank God that Mom had those lists. Like they're going to remember that stuff for the rest of their lives. I guarantee that's going to motivate them and push them in good directions.
Oh, you're going to make me cry. Oh, well, I hope so. Although, I did a Tony Robbins, I do virtual things. He should pay me commission. I do virtual courses. So I said, you should come do one with me. Love them. And we put Post-it notes up, and they're like, life's happening for you, not to you. And, life is 80% preparation, 20% implementation. And, and I put Post-it notes and I keep them there until we do the next one. And the kids put naughty words in the middle of all of them. It's quite funny, and I won't tell you what the word is because probably they can't hear it. But yeah,
go figure though. At least I got some humor.
Yeah, well, so I think you're right. I'm sure you're right.
They will. I know they'll appreciate it, and like that's cool. That's very cool to have someone. They're probably so close to you that they don't even realize how fortunate they are. Because that's what we all do. Is the people the closest to us we take for granted, but I'm sure they realize that they're very fortunate to have you as a mom.
Yeah. Well, some days I feel that way and some days I don't. Like when Brandon comes downstairs and I've got like 10 people down there and we're doing a Tony Robbins, and he comes down and goes, "Hell, Tony Robbins, the cult." I don't know. I don't feel that way then, but hey, the more friction you have, the greater change. As we talked about, the more disruption, the more debate. The more you talk about stuff, the more, the more you're going to achieve. So that's what I'm thinking about him.
I told you I like him. I knew he's got a good sense of humor.
Yeah, he does. At school, they said he was most likely to become a world famous comedian.
Oh, goof. Yeah.
Hasn't got there yet.
Hey, yeah. He's got plenty of time.
Yeah.
I was thinking before, back to what you were saying about the men that have helped you out. I know I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for the women in my life. So it's the exact same in the opposite sense. I'd say it's the same for men. There's the women, like my mother and some of the women I grew up with on the farm, my aunt, those people were some of the toughest people I've ever seen in my life, and the stuff they went through and the way they always showed up for me. So, that's what I would say to men is, hey, be really thankful for the women in your life and the women you put around you. And I'm sure it sounds like it's a two-way street for women to men.
Yeah. Oh, that's really beautiful. Yeah. And yeah, I'd say one of the toughest things, probably the toughest thing I've done in my life is childbirth. So,
is what?
It's childbirth.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm glad you have that. I'm glad you have that attitude. Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever noticed this. I've noticed this with my business recently, and it's kind of a hard thing that I've noticed is my business is a very good expression and reflection of who I am and where I am. So my business has helped me notice all my flaws in myself.
Oh, it's interesting.
Because I'll see the things the business does really well with and the things it doesn't. And if I kind of look at the business as a personality, I'm like, oh yeah, that's just like my personality.
No, I think you've just taught me something. Yeah. I mean, well, that makes sense because your business is one of your passions, right?
Yeah.
So, and the business goes through different, stages, as we both understand. And of course we do too. Winter, spring, summer, fall. And our lives are constantly going through different seasons, and our businesses would make sense that they are too.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to look at though, because then it points out all my shortcomings.
But it also, uh, but you're going to the negative, but it's also pointing out your
Yes.
positives
Right.
because you have told me recently, if I can say,
Sure.
that there are these areas that you did not want to do, things you didn't want to do. And we all have those. And now you're saying, okay, I'm not going to distract myself, which is what you told me you were doing. I'm going to focus on those areas in order to grow this business that I'm actually passionate about.
Yeah.
So you don't give yourself enough credit.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the credit from you.
Well, I've noticed the change.
Thank you. You said your biggest accomplishment is your kids. What can you say about that, or having kids, other than the most painful thing too, having them, but raising kids and having kids?
Oh, I just, they know. We had a dinner party a few months ago, and someone brought a game where you ask, a real question. And the question for me was what were the proudest moments in your life? And my son said, well, it was giving birth to Ashley, that's his sister. And she said, no, it was giving birth to Brandon. So that they know. So what was your question?
I mean, what has having kids taught you? Because you said that was your greatest accomplishment.
Oh my God, what has it taught me? Everything. That the journey of the ego that we all have, that is stripped away when you have children. There's when you succeed in life, we all have an ego. And a good friend of mine recently said, that the journey of life is from the ego to the soul. And I'm thinking about that at the moment because that's only the last few days. But I can tell you, standing in a supermarket when one of your children's having a complete meltdown and screaming and, and you've just come from work and you've just done an interview and you've got 100 staff and, and you're still in your suit, but, you in the supermarket and they're having a complete meltdown and everybody's staring at you, there's no freaking ego. I don't know, it's very difficult because it strips back all that you are to recognizing that, the ego is non-existent. All you are is this, I've never been asked that question, like this conduit to supporting your children unconditionally and loving them because you can't control them. You have no control over anything. Well, 2% of our life we have control over, but I do, like all of us, think that I control so much, but I really control nothing. And when you have kids, all that illusion gets stripped away. The illusion of ego, the illusion of control, the illusion that your life somehow you can manage. Bullshit. So I think that's what the kids taught me the most in the most basic, painful way. Yeah. And not to drink wine in the witching hour. Or to drink wine in the witching hour, really.
That's awesome, though. What a gift.
Yeah. Oh, they're the biggest gift I've ever had. And then you have those moments where, I remember when Brandon was very young. Sorry, I hope you don't listen to this, Brandon. Well, I hope you do. He was probably about 4 or 5, and I was reading him a book in bed one night, and he said, Mum, when I grow up, I'm going to marry you.
Isn't that a Freud or a Jungian thing that all the boys want to marry their mothers and all the girls want to marry their fathers?
I don't know. It kind of sounds gross. So
it sounds like but it sounds like a human being. We're pretty demented.
Yeah, that's true. We are the most evolved, and look what we've done with it in some areas, and others we were incredible, of course.
I think most of us grow out of it, though.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Yeah,
wanting to marry our parents.
Yeah, he grew out of it pretty quickly, Tim.
Yeah.
They become teenagers, and then you're the witch from hell.
What was that phrase you said? Your friend said the journey from life is ego to soul.
Yes.
That's a cool thought.
Yeah, I'm still kind of disseminating that, and um, she's one of the most clever people I know, Giselle, and yeah, she describes life as a journey from ego to soul, and she talks about a journey. She's at like the helix on her arm, and the star that explodes, and I hope I didn't describe this wrongly, and atoms, dark matter coming in and atoms coming together, and basically you don't really grow until you really hit rock bottom. And when you hit rock bottom, you grow into the light, she calls it. And it's only when you really hit rock bottom in the helix matrix, I think it is, or the helix, it's only when you hit rock bottom that the ego falls away and the soul grows. And then when that occurs, life becomes all about helping people. And she describes it as having a passionate desire to discover yourself. And when you have that, life becomes about love and learning and giving and loving yourself. I love that. I love that.
Is her work public anywhere or no?
Um, I don't know if she'll kill me for saying this, but she might love me for saying it. She tells everybody about it. Her name's Giselle Rausch, Rausch. I can probably forward you something. You should probably do a podcast on her. She doesn't. I don't know if she loves doing them, but you could ask her.
Yeah, if you send me some of her info, I'll at least put it in the description if anyone wants to look her up.
Yeah. No, I just feel like I'm learning a lot from her. She talks about, because she has been with many people when they've died. We talked about this last night at dinner here. And, most of us fear death. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do. And she's been with many, many, many hundreds of people, she said, when they've died. And she is looking forward to, she calls it her death day. And she calls it dying into the light. And she's looking forward to dying into the light because she believes that she has been with so many people, literally hundreds of people, and what they say before they die, which I find, I believe it's true too, that souls come to visit you and that there is a moment of whatever you want to call it, passing over or whatever, where they can see the souls and they come to get them, and it's a happy moment in their life. So she's really looking forward to her death day.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting?
Very interesting.
Yeah. Because I kind of said to her, well, I just want a lot of morphine. But anyway, and she said, no, you need to experience it because it's an incredible experience. I find that very extraordinary, and I want to learn more about it.
Yeah, that's why I asked.
Helix matrix, yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah. I find that intriguing. I want to look forward. I don't want to die, but I don't want to be fearful of it. Do you?
I've said that too, and I've said I very much enjoy life. I love my friends and family and people I know, but I do have this curiosity of what it. There's so many unanswered questions, and just so much interesting stuff to hear her say stuff like that. It leaves me with a sense of curiosity that there's so much more than just this world. It's a very, very deep topic.
I agree. We talked about a lot last night at dinner, and it was interesting, because my personal belief in it, and I don't think I'm not a great believer in organised religion, but that doesn't matter because the basis of it are rules that helps human beings live a life of integrity in some areas. But she talks about, the death day only happens once. I think the soul's resurrected, but when we delved into it, her belief is that the ego dies once, but the soul, that is reignited. But there's one death day of the ego, which I find that really intriguing, and I want to read more about it.
That is interesting.
Yeah. But it doesn't make it seem so yucky if people are coming to get you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
I was very fortunate because you sent myself and my girlfriend to Tony Robbins in New York. Thank you again for that. If we haven't said thank you enough.
You're
What
welcome.
what do you what have you taken away from, say, Tony Robbins? You said you did you were doing some Deepak Chopra stuff, and who's the other guy?
Joe Dispenza.
Joe Dispenza.
Yeah.
What have you taken away, and what's your, if anyone wants to go to any of those, is it a waste of their time? Is it worth going?
Oh God, no. I mean, anything is a waste of time if you are not absolutely committed to it, and if you're at the wrong stage for the learning that you're going to get. And I'm not a zealot. I would never push any of that down anybody's throat, because to me, we're all on this journey and we all need different things at different times in our lives. So when I did each of those, they served me where I was at my stage in my journey. Some people think that, Tony Robbins is a I don't know, a motivational cult, like my son.
Yep.
Some people think that Deepak Chopra is, I don't know, a spiritual way out there crazy guy. And some people think that Joe Dispenza is completely nuts. So I think it depends where you're at in your stage and your journey and what you are ready right now in your life and want to passionately commit to learning. Because if you're not at that stage, and I knew you were, and that you wanted to go on that journey, and that you already understood a lot of what he teaches, and so therefore that spoke to you, right? And you learned from it.
Yeah.
I think it's the same with anything. Any of the great teachers, and there's so many of them, and they have so much to teach all of us. So, yeah, I mean, Joe Dispenza taught me so many things about, what they all three of them actually teach: being in the moment, being in the present, which is number one. And the hardest thing for all of us to do, because the brain and the monkey mind just takes you to the past, and that's worry, takes you to the future, and that's anxiety. And that's what most or a lot of us live in, worry and anxiety. But if we're right here in the moment, there's no worry, there's no anxiety. It's just now. So when I look at Deepak and Joe Dispenza, that's probably what they've taught me. And to meditate. Some people say, I can't meditate. Well, that's why they call it a practice, and I for sure, I think I'm a reasonable skier. Sometimes I think I'm terrible, but I'm okay. But that's through years of practice, and so it's practice, meditation. It might just be breathing, just taking 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes every day to focus on, and discipline of doing it every day, to focus on the present moment. Tony Robbins has taught me how to change my state, and how to, that I can think, I look yucky today, or that person said something, maybe I'm a yucky person today. To look at that thought and realize it's just a thought. Thoughts create emotions. So now my emotion is, I'm a yucky person. Well, if I change my thought and I change my state, then I can change my emotion. And that's the primary thing that Tony Robbins has taught me.
Yeah. No, he definitely, in the 4-day experience, that was definitely a big changing state. How many times have you walked on fire?
Oh, just once.
Yeah. I did it as well, which I had no idea I was going to do it.
Yeah, were you scared?
Yeah, I had no idea, but it was funny you say that, because I got in that state of mind. I said, well, we're doing this, everyone's doing this, we're here, let's commit. And we went for it.
Yeah. And isn't it crazy? Because we all did it, right?
Yeah. And
yeah, I mean, the other thing that he taught me is, if your mind believes something, so we got ourselves into a state where we might not have been total, but for some of us it would have been, and some of us it wasn't, that fire could not hurt us, that we were strong, right? That we were in the moment, and that we were going to walk across that fire, and that we were invincible. And I can't remember the words we used. And what he taught me was that what the mind believes is as strong as reality. So, for example, if you're looking forward to a holiday, what you tell yourself about the holiday, and you keep telling yourself, the experience of the expectation, the mind can't tell the difference between that and the actual holiday. So I find that really intriguing and interesting. So if you tell yourself, that you're a wonderful, strong, beautiful, loving, giving, forgiving person that loves themselves, that's as strong as being that person as long as you do it consistently. I find that interesting. Do you believe that?
Yeah, that's a great quote. That's got to be on a frame somewhere now. It's got to say, Annette Presley, what the mind believes is as strong as reality.
Yeah, well, yeah, kind of have to. He takes his stuff from other people, so it goes back
Sure,
through
yeah,
time.
yeah.
But okay, thanks.
I've never heard him say it like that, so I'm giving you that. Yeah, I do.
I love you right now.
I love you too. It's so hard to remember that,
I know.
when everything's going wrong and you feel like a bag of
Potatoes.
yeah. I was gonna say dog shit, but potatoes. Yeah. Either way, it's so hard to remember that if you can just get get your body and your mind in that state.
Yeah. Well, if you get your focus, your words, your physiology in the same positive direction, you're going to create change.
I noticed this after I walked through the fire. I started to try to justify how it wasn't real and it was a hoax.
Did you?
And then I noticed after I came back from that Tony Robbins experience that I had to be very careful of who I told about it, because so many people would try to downplay it and say it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
And then it was almost like my brain was working to get me to believe that all of it was just a complete hoax. But if I talked to the right people, they'd say, that's so cool. I want to go do it next time. But it's so interesting. Most of society will talk you out of your dreams and anything you want to do, just like they want to talk you out of, oh, it probably wasn't real fire that you walked on. It was probably a hoax.
Okay, so that's interesting. So that's interesting because I don't have that experience. I'm not saying that there aren't that comes back to what we were talking about before, and that might be something you might want to look into.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I find this challenging too in my own way, in my journey. But only talk to people that I know are going to support it. And occasionally I might say something to my son, but I know he's going to poop it, and we just have a laugh. But the people that you surround yourself with are either going to lift you up or drag you down. And one of the hardest things that I've done in my life, and I'm not a zealot at it, I still have, I really don't want to kill my son. I love him too much. But, if you can surround yourself with people that lift you up, that are positive about what you're doing, they're not the ones that are going to say, oh, God, that was a hoax.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean you have to get rid of them out of your life. But maybe you don't share that experience with them because you know how they're going to react and respond to you. And if you want to be propelled and lifted up in your journey of life and business and relationships, why would you say to someone that you know is going to be negative, or someone that you don't know how they're going to respond? You can give them people cues and you can pick it up. Like I picked it up from you, and then there's people I would never talk to about it because they're going to go, oh, what a load of bullshit. And you go, well, why would I do that? And why would I do that to myself? I don't do it anymore.
Yeah, and you're smart.
Sometimes
that's what I noticed is I had to be very intentional of who I talked to about it. Otherwise,
great word.
I was ruining the experience for myself, and then I was going to get defensive, and I was going to try to
justify.
Yeah.
And then some part of it goes in, right?
Yeah.
You can't block it all out. You go, well, was it?
Yeah.
Rather than, would you rather believe that you walked on fire and that you can control your mind and your body and your response rather than respond rather than react, or that it was all a hoax and that it's all a joke and that whatever it is, 50 million people around the world that, listen to that guy are all full of shit?
Yeah, that's why I told you I want to go back again this coming fall, because just being around those people, 12,000, however many people that all are in alignment with what I'm trying to do and believe, that there's something very motivating and encouraging to keep on the path that I'm on in life. When I being surrounded by those people for a couple of days, obviously you can't do it every day, but if you can do it once a year, that's awesome.
Well, you can do podcasts every day.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I do. It's one of my things, not every day, but most days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a great experience. Thank you again. I'm going to keep saying thank you.
Okay, well, you're welcome. You're most welcome because, not everybody that I have had the good fortune and good luck to be able to give that opportunity to, and I have given away quite a few tickets to Tony Robbins over the last three years. Not everybody is as committed to it as you are and continues to do it as I know you are, and therefore is changing their life. So I'm really grateful to you and to Amy for really, committing and making it happen and continuing it.
Yeah. And I'm grateful. I'll say shout out to my friend Ryan because he sat where you're sitting. And I told him about this, that you had mentioned it to me. And we had dinner after. And he said, "What are you doing? You got to go, man. You have to go." He really helped motivate me because, it's, if you're not around enough people that are encouraging good ideas. And like I said, I'm very thankful for him too, because he very much helped motivate me to go.
Yeah. Well, hopefully someone from Tony Robbins is listening to this podcast. Is going to send us a couple of free tickets.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to get Ryan to go because I know he'd soak it up and take as much of it as I did from it.
Yeah. So, good.
Yeah.
Well, who knows? I mean, if you focus on something enough, I really believe in the law of attraction too.
Yeah. Yeah. It all sounds hoaxy, but there's definitely something to a lot of it.
Yeah. Serendipity is definitely, I believe, a thing. You know, if you focus on something enough, it's incredible what strange things start happening.
Yeah. I know we're running a little low on time, but I wanted to ask you what your experience is as being from New Zealand, just coming to America. Like, what do you notice that's different? What do you hate? What do you love? Because how long have you been coming here?
So I've been in Montana for 20 years.
Okay.
And I love it. I adore it, as you know.
Yeah.
When we first came to America or Montana, which are you?
Let's say Montana.
Yeah. I mean, when we first had the incredible blessing and good fortune to come to Montana, and we had some friends that we met, funnily enough, in Fiji, and gosh, we were so lucky. He said, "Hey, we'll fly you there." And look, it sounds, out of worldly, but anyway, I'm going to tell a story. We'll fly you there in a private jet. You'll have lunch with Bill Gates. You'll have private powder skiing. And, all of that sounds very lovely. But the thing that we really loved, because that's what I'm about as people, was him and his family and the kids. Our kids are all the same age. But, of course, Bill Gates has always been one of my role models. So that was really appealing. And I've never been in a private jet in my life. Although I was brought up in a pretty, redneck environment. So I hope that's not a bad word. So we came, and the minute we arrived, and of course did the drive through the Gallatin, we just fell in love. And the scenery, we just did it. Is very much like New Zealand, the mix of water, the mountains, being able to ski, being able to, it's unbelievable. I just love Montana. And people have asked me, why'd you choose Montana in interviews? And I had to really think about it. It's because Montana is so much like New Zealand. So that's one part of it, but then it's the people, and people to me are everything. So from the minute we arrived in Montana, you could leave the car running. And I come down to the meadow a lot, and people are so kind, in the local wine bar, and, it tips up, and all the local restaurants, and the nature, the horses, the people, the honesty, the authenticity. There's so many parallels with my country, and we just fell in love, and we never left.
That's great to know about New Zealand. You feel like there's a lot of people like that are very authentic and welcoming.
Very
cool.
Yeah, very.
Now I know where I want to visit next.
Well, I did invite you.
Yeah,
Still invite
you.
I'm
going to take you up on it.
Yeah, good. Come to stay.
Yeah, so 20 years. And what?
I don't know how many listeners you've got, but I don't have hundreds of bedrooms.
Okay.
Got a few though.
Yeah, I'm going to take you up on that.
Good, do.
Yeah. And, I mean, what do you notice much different? Like, is there big cultural differences here in New Zealand? What side of the road we drive on or anything?
You mean from Montana to New Zealand, right?
Yeah, or just the U.S.
Well, the US is huge,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, every different state is totally different to the next.
Yeah.
Montana is the most like New Zealand that I have been in America, but I love America as a whole. I love the drive and the success of New York, and I spent a lot of time there. I love the, LA is a little bit more superficial, but I have a lot of friends in LA, and I love LA. The music, the culture of every state I love. Montana is my home in America because it is so much more like New Zealand, but the culture of each state is totally different. Sorry, what was your question again?
No, just like what did you notice that's the most different from New Zealand to the
Well,
U.S. or Montana to New Zealand?
okay. So people America on the whole, but in Montana in particular, are really very what would I say? Really kind and sometimes just so polite. That's the word. And I think Kiwis, that's what we call New Zealanders, are more kind of blunt, kind and welcoming, but not, they're not going to say, oh, I'm sorry, did I accidentally touch you? So Montanians are more polite than Kiwis. Kiwis, I don't know on the whole, but are very entrepreneurial. So we probably have more entrepreneurs per capita than what we used to, and we still do, than anywhere else, I'd say. Kiwis are big sailors. Montanians, obviously, it's pretty difficult to sail here, but very active sports-wise. I think there's more similarities than differences. I do get the feeling, actually, that Montanians, it's more of a feeling, and you're not an example of it, don't necessarily dream big. Kiwis dream big. We're brought up in a little island across the other side of the world. And if you can succeed in New Zealand, you can succeed anywhere in the world. I think Kiwis have more of a dream big mentality because they want to be a part of the world. They're always traveling. New Zealand is the second largest traveling, I think, nation in the world apart from Germans anyway, per capita. But Montanians, I think, can be, in my experience, self-limiting. They don't necessarily see their business as being the best in America, whereas New Zealanders are always seeing their business as being the best in the world, in my experience. So I think that's the limitation that Montanians put on themselves that New Zealanders don't. But on the whole, I think that there's more similarities than differences.
That's one thing I noticed about you too, if you don't mind me saying, is when I first met you, is your wit. Kind of like you were saying, Montanans might be more polite. You were just, and not in any rude way, but just very funny. You were just sharp and like quick to respond and say what you were thinking and be honest. And I'm like, I'd noticed like the humor in it, and I'm like, I just as a driver, I don't say anything, but you just notice it in the background. And then we got to know each other over the years, and I'm like, I've really grown to appreciate your wit and humor and your directness.
Oh, thank you. I love you. I am intimidating to a lot of men. I'm just saying.
The only reason I told you, because I grew up with so many tough, intimidating women that it's like it feels normal to me. I'm like I appreciate it and admire it, but I could very much see that that the intimidation could come off.
Yeah, it's something I've never really tempered in my life, and some of my closest male friends. I remember at my wedding, one of my closest old male friends, a lawyer, Mark Lowndes, in New Zealand, he got up and he said to my husband, because we were married then that day, he said, Malcolm, not many men can handle Annette. Congratulations.
That's funny.
I know. I took it as a compliment.
Yeah, I know. I mean it completely as a compliment.
Yeah, no, I know you do. I know you do. I love you.
I love you too. All right, we probably got to get out of here soon to get you to the airport. Anything else you want to say?
Oh,
If anyone wants to find out more information about you or what you do or watch any of your speeches, where can they find it?
Well, there's quite a few on YouTube. I just looked this morning for the first time in ages, and there's television shows that I did Dragon's Den on there now too that you made me, thank you. You made me look on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, YouTube, and I've got a website which probably needs updating. And there's a lot of stuff online, but yeah, I mean, I would be more prone to go to the real experts, like.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Don't even do this right now.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
You-
I mean, you can. Yeah. LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm doing a lot of philanthropic stuff right now that I'm pretty proud of and about to do a whole lot more. And yeah, no, I mean, hey, I love feedback. I love helping people. So, if there's any opportunities that you guys want to reach out or anything you want help on, if I can help, I'll help.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Annette.
You're welcome.
Cool. This was awesome.
Yeah, well, you're awesome.